But what I was talking about a decade ago, and what continues to be absolutely true today, is that southeastern Australia overall is losing rainfall. It's starting to dry out. There's a drying trend which is strongly tied to the influence of greenhouse gases.
Well, that is certainly what the latest report to the government from the Climate Change Authority is saying. They're still predicting less rainfall or lower rainfall in southern Australia. 5% less rain with a 2-degree increase in global warming, 10% with a 3-degree increase, 18% with 4 degrees. But I'm wondering if we do see lots more cyclonic extreme weather, is it possible that we could actually see those losses of rain made up in other ways?
It's unlikely. You know, what used to give us, what used to fill our dams was good winter rains, you know, starting through the autumn, preparing the soil, wetting the soil down, then you get stream flow and the dams would fill with filtered water. These big dumps tend to run off very, very quickly, bringing a lot of soil and other things into the dams with them. And they're not really a replacement for the old way that the climate system used to work. I think we'll see as we go into the future what we need to do in terms of addressing this, but we need to be aware that over the longer term we're going to face a situation where there's less and less available water, and demand, of course, will continue to increase as our population grows.
Now, let's turn to the report and the other things. It again warned, the Climate Authority's report, that global warming of more than 2% could trigger or risks triggering permanent changes to some physical systems. What physical systems are they talking about?
We're talking about the way the whole Earth system works, basically. You know, once you get beyond 2 degrees, you start having big impacts on the iced areas, the snow-covered and ice-covered areas of the planet. You may start striking some significant instability in those areas, and we're already seeing signs of that in West Antarctica and in Greenland and in the Arctic ice cap. You'll see large-scale changes in rainfall patterns, and again, we're already seeing the beginnings of that now with just 1 degree of warming. We'll see climatic zones start to shift, agriculture start to be challenged, the water cycle changing, so you will get more intense rainfall events. We've already seen that in the United States, where there's been an 80% increase in the eastern US of intense rainfall events, as opposed to the more gentle rainfall in the past. So the system starts to change, and once you get beyond 2 degrees, you really risk accelerating one-way change that you can't do anything about. And that's why the nations of the world have got together and decided they'll hold a meeting in Paris where they'll make all efforts to reduce the greenhouse gas burden to a point where we won't trigger more than 2 degrees of warming. But, you know, even at that point, they've only agreed to reduce the greenhouse gases to the point where we'll have a 50-50 chance of avoiding 2 degrees. So it's not really a strong target.
All right, let's one system, I suppose, that has proved remarkably resilient to climate change is the political system in Australia, it has to be said. Now, how do you rate the chances of the government agreeing to what the Climate Authority has said, which is an increase in the emissions reduction target to 30% by 2025, a big jump?
It is a big jump, but in terms of global ambitions, it's not by any means on the high side of the ambition stakes. In fact, when you compare that 30% target with what the US has already committed to do, they're pretty much the same. So if we did commit to 30%, we'd only be matching what the US is doing with its targets. Places like China have already reduced coal burning by 2.5% over the last year. So there are huge efforts going on overseas. We'd be in the middle of the pack if we took up the 30% target.
What about the 5% target that they have agreed to? Are we likely to even reach that, the way things are going?
Well, look, there are really deep concerns about that. We've seen since the abolition of the carbon tax a very strong increase in the amount of coal burning in the country. We are down to about 72.5% of the electricity mix coming from burning coal. We're back up to 75%. And you can taste that in the air in places like the Latrobe Valley. Those old antique coal-fired power plants are just going for broke. And, you know,
so can I just ask this, would a higher emissions target mean that the Prime Minister would have to adjust his rhetoric about coal being the answer to prosperity?
Well, the question is, how do you achieve a 5% reduction when you've got an increase in coal burning in the electricity sector, when you've got an uptick in electricity demand due to the big gas plants that are going on in Queensland and the need to compress gas there? Where do you get the gains? I mean, electricity is the biggest single emitter for us in Australia. If we can't make gains there, then we're going to be challenged getting any sort of reduction when we've got increases and significant increases going on in that sector.
Okay.